The first one was, yeah, the first one is actually in these many words by an employee.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
an employee of Haptic who, while leaving, he basically said that I'm leaving because, and it was a very calm conversation where he was just like, yeah, it didn't work out. It's like, okay, and so then I said, chal, tu ja raha hai types. So, any feedback for me? I asked this question, any feedback, and I didn't expect this
Okay.
to come, right? I'm like, "हाँ,
Unfiltered feedback.
yeah, this was very unfiltered. I said कि मैं feedback बोलेगा कि अच्छा time पे आया करो कुछ करो. I thought कि something like that कि don't scream so much, just that. So I asked any feedback from me, and he's like, you're not a good leader. I think you
Oh
are.
my God.
I think you are a manager. You are not somebody who knows how to lead.
Hey, Akrit. Thanks for agreeing to do this.
Hi Aviral. Hi Maze. Yeah. What else do I have to do on a Sunday?
Awesome. What's one truth few people agree with you on? Let's start with the curveball question.
Hmm. Straight in. We may have overestimated the depth of the internet market in India too soon.
Mm. Can you elaborate on that?
It's a long elaboration, just work with me here. So, if you think about venture investing in general over the last 50, 60 years, or 100 years for that matter, whenever, the most outsized outcomes, or rather, really why venture got created, was to invest in new innovative technologies
Right.
that once they hit an inflection point will then scale disproportionately. Only
Correct.
then does the entire model make sense of innovation, startups, venture, returns, and so on. I think in India, if you just unpack that statement of true innovation and technology that hits an inflection point, none of those have actually happened.
Hmm.
Essentially, most of, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, I think it's actually not a bad thing, and I'll tell you why. Most businesses or most unicorns or startups that have been built basically converting offline to online, right? So
Right.
simply something that was happening offline, how do I digitize it or bring it online? Now
Right.
that is not necessarily core technology innovation.
Hmm.
That's more really that specific offline business that you're running with a digital presence. As a result, you can become a lot more efficient at certain ways of doing things, but it doesn't warrant the same type of venture investing that led to venture type outcomes over the last, let's say, 50, 60 years. So as a result, I think when I look back at the last decade, I came back to India in 2013, right? So I came back on this whole premise. I actually think that there's not, like, in the quest of trying to make a lot of these businesses feel venture investable, similar to US social networking or search or e-commerce back in the day, we put way too much money at work, and there's that may not have been a good thing, because these businesses, no matter what you do, are going to take certain time to reach where they have to.
Understand. Can you give an example of that? So let's take Amazon in the US and Flipkart in India. Why are they different?
Because the retail market itself is not as big as, let's say, what it was in 2001 when Amazon started,
Okay.
right? So like I said, depth of market, simply put, um, you know if there were 300 million people in the US, 200 million of them were still shopping, right? And they were still spending
Right.
enough. I think when Flipkart started, there are two challenges. One, out of a billion people, there was not maybe more than 30 million people shopping. And second,
Right.
more, not many were online. So now to climb that rope, it just takes a little longer. So Flipkart is, I'm not saying Flipkart is not a great business. I think Flipkart is a phenomenal business and can become even better. But I
Right.
think in the quest of all of us trying to accelerate these businesses, maybe we've not done them justice. It just, these are things that are going to take time because it's just the nature of the market.
Understand. So you feel like the amount of money that came into the ecosystem was more than it required, or
100.
certain businesses were overcapitalized. Is that your
I
view?
think everything was.
Okay.
I think at the rate at which it went in, honestly.
Understand.
I think the same amount of money will be needed,
Right.
but instead of a 7 or an 8 year period, I think it was more like a 15 or 20 year period.
Understand. I actually kind of agree with you. I've got a sense that India is both an overcapitalized and undercapitalized market. At the same time, this duality is fascinating to me, which means that certain businesses were pushed too hard to scale, while many other businesses, due to these certain businesses absorbing the capital, did not get funded. So
Yeah, yeah,
I think,
absolutely. And I think I'm referring, like, when you asked me about the question, I was referring to, like I said, Indian depth of Indian internet tech. So I'm
right,
being very specific, right? I think there
right,
is a lot of other types of businesses, um, non-internet, non-Indian
right,
software, a lot of other types of businesses that I don't think have got the capital and can deserve a lot more.
right.
Uh, I was referring to
No, that
very
makes
specific.
sense. I do agree, and I think it's probably less about early stage investing, which I call venture investing, and I think you're referring to more of the larger ticket sizes, which were expecting more acceleration, which generally come at growth. Would that be fair?
Theoretically, yes, but I do think that a lot of the later stage money was also, trying to find the right word. The word I'm going to use, I'm not sure if anybody knows the meaning. I'm going to use cajoled. Cajoled means it's not, cajoled means it was almost like pushed towards by the early stage guys, right?
Right,
Because see, here's what happens. If I invest in, and again, this is, I do want to call this out that I don't think anybody was trying to do wrong through this,
right,
including founders like me. I don't
right.
think anybody was trying to do this in a way that they had wrong intent. I think everybody was trying to do the right thing at the right time. So let's say if a venture investor invests $3 million in Series A,
Right.
um, there's an expected curve that they want those companies to then take.
Hmm.
Because that's just the nature of the VC
I understand. So you're
fund.
saying the expectations came in from step zero, and then that
Absolutely.
basically defined the journey of the company. That's fair as well. And talking about journeys, you obviously are from India, but you went abroad. Um, Talk us through that, the decision to go to the US and then to come back. Both that whole journey till you get back here.
Yeah. Decision to go to the US was because I was too. I felt like in 11th and 12th grade I was too lazy to study for IIT. So it just I didn't feel like I wanted to spend like 2 years. At that time, I used to feel 2 years of my most vibrant life, but later realized at 16 and 17 you're still very much kids. Um,
Right.
so the original motivation came here. अभी तो school खत्म हुआ है. I don't want to now spend 2 years or 3 years of just hardcore JE prep. So what else is there to do? Ran into a couple of friends who said that, hey, look, if you also want to get high quality engineering education, you can potentially go to the US. Now, obviously, the first um, after the first level of excitement, the second thought that comes to your mind is how am I going to be able to afford it, and does it make sense economically, and so on. Fortunate for me, I'm the only child, so my parents didn't have to spend on multiple kids, and I think they also cared and valued about education quite a bit, and all thanks to them that was an easy conversation to have. And obviously you got financial assistance and all that, but that's besides the point. So it came from JEE नहीं पढ़ना तो क्या कर सकते हैं,
Right.
and then a couple of people said, why don't you try this route, and then that's it. You didn't really think about it more than that. um, Applied to a number of colleges, the standard process, did 10 college applications, got into my second choice, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. It's in the middle of nowhere.
Hmm.
It's Midwest, about 2.5 hours south of Chicago. It's known for cornfields and minus 40 degrees in winter. So nobody told me about the latter. Well, people warned me, but like there's one thing being warned, and second when you show up. Um, got there honestly when I went for my college. For some reason, whether it was just family, culture, values, business. It just felt like this there was always going to be a return. I didn't feel like I wanted to, um, work or live abroad for that matter. So even from day one, it always felt like that I will eventually work in India. Finished college. Then after that, landed up in San Francisco to start working in consulting with one of the large consulting firms. Um, Within I think 2 months over there, I realized that I hate this job. It wasn't something I felt intellectually stimulated, and I think that's when I realized that I get excited about building stuff. College में थोड़ा बहुत side पे काम किया था here and there. Nothing to write home about, but did some work. My father ran his business his entire life, so I had seen like just this whole idea of what a business means. So the idea of really working in this large kind of 100,000 employee workforce where you're like at the lower rung, not sure what value you're adding, was a very alien experience to me.
Right.
It felt very out of body, and that's when I realized कि ये नहीं हो सकता लाइफ में, कुछ भी होगा ये नहीं हो सकता.
How fast was that realization? Few months?
2 3 months, man. I think.
Okay.
I remember. I think August I joined. October I was placed on my first project. By December I was thinking, what's next in life.
And when did you actually? Wow, that's. I mean, a lot of people go through that, but not in the first few months. When did you actually pull the trigger to then?
Yeah, I would want to thank them for making me realize this so quickly, because it always such an like it was such an outer body experience that you instantly realize that whatever you'd want to do would have to be the other extreme, right? Which is what brought me to eventually what I ended up doing. Um, हाँ, तो दो तीन महीने, but the good thing that happened was I found myself in the San Francisco Bay Area. So,
Okay.
thanks to them, they moved me out there for that was my HQ. I had no idea why I was going there, but I just landed up there.
So from
Um,
minus 40 to plus something,
yeah,
at
yeah, and I
least.
realized, wow, America is actually beautiful.
Right.
So, California is obviously gorgeous. So yeah, I landed up there within 6 months. Realized this is not what I want to do, and then said, okay, look, what next? I can't go back home with this, right? That okay, look, कुछ नहीं, कुछ try किया, कुछ नहीं हुआ, वापस आ गए. Um, so then, that's when I started saying that okay, look, um,
This is
what's
what
this?
year? Just time frame wise?
Nine. Now we're in
2009.
2009. So then I said, okay, look, and I'll come to this now, like sort of 14 years later, there's something similar happening. But anyway, 2009, so okay, look, what next? I don't know anything. I've never done anything real in my life. So where do I even start? Um, and that's when, just like any other 22-year-old, started looking at whatever the options were. Amongst one of them was just meet whoever else I know in San Francisco, just through college friends या जो भी आप बोल लो. तो landed up meeting a friend randomly, a friend of a friend rather, who said कि अरे मैं स्टार्टअप में काम करता हूँ. So I said, वो क्या होता है? So he said that, अरे we are in Silicon Valley, you don't know what this is. So I still remember over a drink, San Francisco bar, he told me all about what this is, right? So the way he walked me through is, so you join a startup or you start a company, then you raise um, VC money. All the VCs are based in San Francisco. Then you get ESOP. फिर एक दिन कोई आके तुम्हारी कंपनी खरीदेगा, फिर तुमको ESOP का बहुत सारा पैसा मिलेगा. So you know he walked me through sort of all of this about just the tech industry. And I said, oh wow, this is amazing. This is very good, yaar. ये तो मतलब I can join somewhere, I'll get a bunch of ESOP, companies will raise money, and eventually somebody will buy, and I'll make a lot of money. This sounds like a good choice of life. Um, but also, what happened at that time was interesting. Was the App Store just came out, so 2009.
Right.
So this was like
And
peak,
you
like
left your job at just the start of a recession as well.
had not left yet. So I was
Okay,
still working.
planning
So
to leave.
I did not pull because I was on a visa, right? So what would I do?
Right,
I was on
right.
the
Okay.
H1B.
But you were planning to leave even then. I mean, when people were getting laid off left, right, and center.
बट सिलिकॉन वैली में तो अलग मूड था ना उस समय बिकॉज आईफोन लॉन्च हुआ था
Right.
वहां पे तो ऑपोजिट ऑफ रिसेशन हो रहा था
अच्छा.
अभी तो ऐप
Interesting.
स्टोर लॉन्च हुआ है अभी तो मतलब 20 साल बाद नया प्लेटफॉर्म आया है आफ्टर द इंटरनेट तो
Correct.
देयर इट वाज अ फुल डिफरेंट सीन
Vibe.
so anyway so long story short met this guy learned about it iPhone just launched घूम फिर के a year later I ended up joining this company called Flurry
Okay.
where we were basically providing app analytics so Google Analytics for mobile apps
Got it. What App
uh,
Annie is like today in some sense.
हाँ but हमारा was more the Google route which is you have to
Okay.
embed an SDK just like
Understand.
a
And
JavaScript
then
code
crawl and whatever.
stuff like that. So um, and basically the idea was that look again join this let's see where this goes I joined as employee number 20 by the time I left in 13 the company was about 300 people I joined
Hmm.
when we were $0 in revenue by the time I left we were 70 million 70 in ARR and then we got acquired a few years later by Yahoo after I left
Okay.
so and then your other part was journey to moving back so अब क्या हुआ that when I was at this startup within similar to the previous calling within 2 months I realized कि बस यही करना है लाइफ में
Okay.
ओके तो पहला
That's
था कि ये
Far.
नहीं करना बिल्कुल भी और विद इन 2 मंथ्स रियलाइज कि यही करना है आई जस्ट लव द energy I told you I felt like I was always a builder so just being in the trenches um, seeing crises day after day I said yes this is what I love like one day you have a high the second day you have a low and fortunately that time I wasn't a founder so I was just seeing founders go through it um, the way things change the trading flow mentality of the work it just felt like it didn't feel like work was work even though I was one of the junior most people in the company I was pretty much working all the time I looked forward to it like I used to actually sometimes not like weekends because मैं करूँगा क्या so um, it was in that sense just felt like everything that I wanted so very quickly realized that this is what I want to do and ideally whatever I do I want to do it myself so realized very quickly कि बस यही करना है this is too much fun this is the way of life that I wanted to be and then obviously coming from where I came from Bombay dad had a business all of that felt like this way of life has to be my own
Right.
not economically driven but more so that that's the only way to continue from here and anything less than that I wouldn't be doing justice to everything I've invested or learned so far so फिर उसके बाद हमने क्या किया that हमने so Swapan comes in now so Swapan is my co-founder and CTO at Haptic we were in college together we were roommates in college he
Also
wa-
from India? Is he also
he
from
grew up
India?
in the Middle East
Oh, okay.
वो
Understood.
तुमने वो एलिफ पिक्चर देखी एलिफ पिक्चर
Airlift.
एयरलिफ्ट
Airlift. हाँ.
एयरलिफ्ट
हाँ,
हाँ
हाँ.
तो वो एयरलिफ्ट वाले वो प्लेन में था मतलब उसको लेके आए थे ऐसा उधर से हाँ
Oh, really?
yeah,
Okay. Amazing.
yeah. So he
So
grew up in
Kuwait.
Kuwait yeah तो
Interesting. So your co-founder became a mini celebrity as a kid.
yeah तो अभी जब भी कहीं किसी के पास भी जाता है he always mentions this
Okay.
it's a good starting point for a story so
Absolutely.
so Swapan and I went college together and then a little after I joined Flurry, he pinged me saying that, hey, look, he was also at a consulting firm. And he pinged me saying, yeah, this is not what I want to do. I said, hey, you took 2 years to realize. I realized this in a couple of months. And he said that, yeah, I've been thinking of taking a course in iPhone app development.
Hmm.
and I wanted to reach out to you, given that now you work in the space. So I
Right.
said, yeah, let's keep chatting. Let's see what we can do. Long story short, he took the course, he did that, ये वो, and हमने दोनों ने मिलके we started making mobile apps
Okay.
as a side project.
And this is when both of you were still at your respective places.
We were both in the US, and we were both. No, I had moved on to Flurry. I was at Flurry, and Swapan was still with his consulting gig. तो हमने बोला कि नाइट्स एंड वीकेंड्स पे ये करेंगे, वैसे भी कुछ करने को है नहीं नाइट्स एंड वीकेंड्स पे बियॉन्ड दिस, सो व्हाई नॉट build apps. So then we that was the first taste of what you can say entrepreneurship, for the lack of better word. तो हमने पहली मोबाइल ऐप बनाई which was the snake game for the iPhone. तो हमने बोला कि हमको स्नेक बड़ा पसंद था when we were growing up. iPhone पे कुछ snake नहीं है, but I want to bring it back. So we made the snake game on the iPhone, and that was, like I said, the first taste of like, okay, look, we can maybe do something in life. We built it, launched it. 2 months later, it was ranked number 4 on the US App Store.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we grossed 3 million downloads. And this is a hustle side weekend project, by the way. Okay, so 3 million downloads. हमने डाल दिए थे सबके सब ad feed, ये Google का ad feed, Facebook का ad feed. तो करते करते, I think within a year, between the two of us, we made something like 300K.
Hmm.
Okay, now 23-year-old side project, 150K each, ये वो, तो हम तो मतलब पागल हो गए. हमने बोला कि बॉस, मैं तो मतलब,
यही करूंगा
I
पूरी
can kill
जिंदगी.
it. हाँ, I think I can, yeah, I think I can, like, really, we are meant for much bigger things.
Right.
Um, and so that's around that same time when we then both of us seriously started thinking about, okay, look, on a serious note, we think we can do this. We built something nice. We enjoy working with each other. He's the tech guy, I'm the product manager. So maybe we can do a lot more, and we can do it with a lot more intent and perseverance and dedication versus just
Right.
doing it like this. So that's when the idea said that, okay, look, let's start a company. And that's when the last part of your question gets answered, is that then we said, okay, look, as we think about doing this, US, India, how do we think about where our best chances are? I came to India for a month while visiting, and I spent some time here back in 2010.
Hmm.
And I realized उस समय फ्लिपकार्ट था, ओला था, और कुछ नहीं था. And बाकी then there was ओला भी, I think, चालू ही हो रहा था. And then there was
Right.
a bunch of other companies. I went for an unplugged event to Bangalore में. Unplugged.in ने event रखा था. And
Okay.
वहाँ पे 50 लोग थे, and that was the 50 people in the internet ecosystem in India.
Oh
So
wow. Okay.
uh, I ended up meeting a bunch of them, and felt like there's a lot that can happen.
Right.
Um, and then yeah, made my way back over here eventually to start Haptic.
And can you talk about what Haptic started off as and what was the problem you identified?
Yeah, so it started from at Flurry. We had a number of customers who were in the messaging space, and one of them was also WhatsApp. So we had all these apps who used to use our analytics. So I noticed that their engagement was just insane back, like 11, 12 years back as well. And particularly, like basically हम क्या बोलते थे कि सबसे ज़्यादा engagement तभी भी और आज भी in mobile apps is on gaming. The only other category that showed this crazy engagement was messaging or communications. So the thought came from there that, look, there's something over here, right? There's something that can be built as a large business within this whole messaging space. पहले तो हमारा initial thought था कि चलो एक WhatsApp का alternate बनाते हैं, right? Like, let's make another better app, because that time WhatsApp was very popular, but still not obviously where it is today. So we said maybe that's an opportunity. But then we realized very early on, कि look, they have enough tailwinds where the network effects are already starting to kick in. So it may not make sense. So then we said, okay, look, what are the other problems? And we landed on this problem that, look, how are businesses going to leverage this capability to transact and engage with customers? So we said, okay, look, let's build on the business user engagement side.
And
And we
this
believe,
this thought process took how long? Like as you're evolving on these ideas, this was a few months or
no, no, good question. I think mid 2011 is when we started thinking about it. I think by the time we rolled our first app out was mid 2012, but we were still not full time. By the time we rolled it out and we were full time and all of that was end 2013.
so 3 years from ideation to actually getting a product. But yeah, so the ideation process, you did you actually try building something consumer and then decide to pivot the business side, or that was something that happened early on? And then how did you guys, maybe get your first customer? Did you have a customer before you launched an app, or you launched first?
Yeah. So maybe I'll fast track a little bit to overall haptic journey. So overall haptic journey is basically three phases. We're going to complete 10 years this year. Um, phase one, we said we are going to build the Google Assistant of India. So essentially, the problem that I told you, how will businesses and users chat, we will go directly to consumers. So we will build an app where consumers will come, they will ask all types of questions, and then we'll start integrating brands within that, such that brands can directly answer questions through
Talk
our
to
own
consumers.
platform.
Okay.
So that was V1. We spent 4 years and about 16 million trying to build that. After which we realized that it's not working because, um, you know, because of few things. First is the core Google Assistant, Amazon Alexa, that use case just didn't work at a macro. People just didn't want to do it that way, right? Like even all of us, we've just
Yeah.
not been used to like these messaging or chat driven assistants.
Right.
Second was कि अगर आपको खाली businesses का problem solve करना है तो typically when you, me and I have genuinely an issue with businesses, हम उनकी website पे जाते हैं, हम उनके app पे जाते हैं, हम थोड़ी ना, we won't
You
come
don't
on
go
a
and talk to a third party. Yeah, it's a
third party,
change. Yeah. Yeah.
correct? So that was the second. So both these things meant that the core sort of use case combined with monetization wasn't working. Luckily, we had some money in a bank. That came phase two. So phase two was a bunch of trial and error. We built like three, four products in parallel.
Okay.
We pivoted the haptic app to do something different. We built another app which was a more utility productivity app. And then because we had built so much infrastructure on the chatbot itself because of the nature of the assistant,
Mhm.
we said ki maybe other businesses may find it useful as a licensed software. So that was a B2B angle. So that was second phase. Those for 2 years we were just doing a lot of these things. We
Just
were
experimenting with different ideas and selling your infrastructure as a B2B. So,
that plus that, yeah. So that
yeah.
happened for till about mid 18, and then
Okay.
mid 18, sort of Geo came along, and they basically said that look, there's a lot that you guys have built which is exciting, but we particularly like this B2B aspect. Because we have a thesis that we believe that we will you consume a ton of conversational AI as Reliance. So if we will, then every enterprise in the world will. As a
We'll have this.
result, you can probably build a large business here. So he said, okay, if you say so. So, and then they invested and acquired majority. And then that's been phase three since then, which is last 4 years, which has been a hardcore B2B SaaS company.
How is the method of working, or how is it working with Reliance? I know people have many opinions from the outside, but you have an insider's view as an outsider. So, um, what was your impression of them, and did that change during the journey? How was the experience?
So now the curveballs come. So, um, no, I mean, I've answered this very publicly many times. Um, yeah, I have nothing but good things to say in general. I have been extremely fortunate, impressed, happy, call it all those words, to be a part of the ecosystem. And I'll walk you through in terms of sort of two, three examples and ways that this has worked out, right? Um, when they first approached us, or rather, it was mutual. We reached out to them actually as a customer. So we reached out to them saying, "Humko, we want to, as part of our B2B infrastructure, we think Reliance can use it." They quickly picked it up and said, "No, no, Manoj Modi wants to meet you." तो पहले तो मतलब उस समय तो दिस इज लाइक 5-6 years बैक राइट, तभी तो जियो इंटरनेट कुछ था नहीं, तो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन तो सबको सब पूछा ही मनोज मोदी कौन है. So and then obviously we were told that he's a senior most person at Reliance and very respected. So um, and, when we went into the conversation and when we came out, the one thing that everybody constantly told us around us was that, look, be careful what you sign up for, because of the perception that they're an interfering group and they will not let you run your business the way you want to. During the discussions, we point blank basically asked this, because what do like two 27-year-olds, hey, some 27, so 29, we had a lot to lose, but point being that as young entrepreneurs, you, without knowing much, you can still ask these questions. So we asked them very point blank that, look, how will the operations work? Will we be employees of Reliance? And we said we're not saying what is right or wrong. We are just asking that, what do you imagine the structure to be? Will we be employees of Reliance? Will we be a subsidiary, but then you have a very certain way of running your companies? Or will we be an investment, in which case, we'll do what we think is right for the business, where, of course, as a board and as a parent, you give us direction. And without even flinching an eye, he looked just straight up eye to eye and he said, with everybody we are doing this in the internet ecosystem, we only wanted to be the third, which is we invest in you and you do what you need to, and we will, as a parent and as a board, continue to obviously have all the uh, required controls and guidance that we need to. So we said ki, okay, but then again we came back and said, okay, look, बोलने के लिए तो अच्छा है, but we'll see sort of what this eventually means. But there was enough conviction, trust, so we went ahead. It's exactly the way that's played out. And now it's 4 years coming up in like a month. And by the way, the best, anybody who asks you that question, I always answer back with saying that, look, even if you know me a little bit, and going back to 30 minutes back when you asked me about where I started, I wouldn't have been here 4 years. And I wouldn't have been in this structure 4 years if I didn't feel I was still building and growing something that I felt excited about. So that's at least as the haptic geo relationship. And they've been very good about honoring all the things we spoke about, agreements, they're pretty good about it, honestly. I do also think that there is a genuine intent to leave a lot of the new age businesses alone, because I think there is a genuine intent to think that they may not know how some of these things have to be done. So it's better that they learn from folks like us, not learn, but more like see what we have to bring. Now, in terms of, obviously, the other part is what have been my experiences or observations is working with them as maybe a customer, or even just observing them and the way they operate. And I always tell everybody this, it's the most unique corporate culture, I think, anywhere in the world. I don't think anybody can have such a culture, and I don't think anybody can even replicate it. And it will never work for anybody else also. It's a very, very unique way of doing things, that whether I look at a lot of our customers who we work with in India, which are also big corporates, or a lot of my friends who work at the Googles and Facebooks of the world, it's extremely unique. It's something that almost feels like they've mastered over a period of time. And actually, I feel that's part of the secret sauce.
Can you elaborate on that? I'm curious to understand what that culture is. Like, if you can take a parallel or an example with, let's say, a Google or a Facebook.
It's extremely top heavy, and they're very proud of that, which is a difference, right? If you go to a Facebook or a Google, the executives over there, even if there is a lot of direction and micromanagement that comes from the top, they will shy away from it because that's not cool, but not with Reliance, right? I think they're very proud of the fact that, they're so meticulous and attention to detail driven on every aspect. And my conclusion has been, not conclusion, but one inference has been that maybe that's the only way to build a sustainable large business in India. Maybe in India, it's just the culture, nature, where we are as a country, demographic, economic parity, all that, where to really get things done and to really move at the pace that you need to, maybe that's the only way. Maybe the way of the US is not really going to work. Um, and that's been one sort of very strong observation, which also means that the kind of talent they bring on board should be very comfortable working within that. I think you'll notice there are two types of folks at Reliance. There'll be one category who have spent more than 10 years, and they're likely never going to go anywhere else. And then there's the second category who've not spent more than 2 years.
In the middle.
So you realize that there is anybody who's able to cross that inflection point, then it's just, no matter what you do, these people are just so accustomed to that culture and, creating that long value that is very difficult to sort of for them to do anything else. So I think one is that they're proud of the fact that it's top heavy. Second is, MMA told me this once, that um, they are not scared to make fast decisions, but they're equally quick at reversing decisions. So the space at which they make multi-billion dollar decisions, I am sometimes just blown away. It takes me longer sometimes to make decisions at our scale, even though we are a startup, right? But then there are also rollback things at an equally sort of quick pace. And and that I theoretically, when I'm telling you this, you're like, "Acha, how does that actually work?" You can't say, you just have to witness it, right? When it actually happens, when it's just like you did something, made a big call, a week or 10 days later, kind of flip back to it. Really, like, how do you make sure you manage everybody around you, stakeholders, employees, teams, everybody? So I think that's just phenomenal. And third is, and that maybe I won't be able to go deeper because that involves maybe some information that only I can't share publicly. But I think what I've also realized is they are very there is a playbook to everything they do, and they every single time play within their what they call their core competence. Like I think like all the businesses that they end up scaling, I feel, are within a certain playbook of way of doing things, which involves, like, kind of 1 2 3 steps, ranging from let's do this first, then this, then that. And if they realize that that playbook can work on a large market, they will go disrupt that market.
Thank you for that really interesting insight into how things work. But wanted to kind of take a bit of a macro view for the conversational AI space in general. What are your views? You've had a chance over the years to try out many stuff, both on the consumer and the business side. Perhaps for aspiring entrepreneurs who are listening, what are some of the exciting spaces for you in the industry as a whole?
In conversational AI or AI at large?
Maybe start with conversational AI and then AI at last, just because ChatGPT, that's been a theme and everyone's been talking about it. So
See, conversational AI, I think there's a lot of exciting applications, especially, of course, with the favorite new kid on the block, ChatGPT. Um,
you think they can make money though? I mean, that's what I wonder. I feel like it's like a cool toy. It's a shiny new thing.
we'll see. See, I think there's a search use case, which if they're able to do really well, then absolutely right. I mean, that's like just this gigantic monopoly opportunity that they can capture. I think the enterprise use case might also be interesting, which is the stuff that Microsoft is trying to do now, which is try to take it to enterprises. Look, I'll be very candid, and I think everybody knows this to some degree, and you can also perceive this from the outside. My expectation of conversational AI was a lot more, and I've kind of been a bit, um, uh, you know, disappointed is not the right word, underwhelmed by just how we've played out over the last 10 years. And I actually think the um, challenge is not so much the technology. I think technology can do a good job, and not ChatGPT is here. I think if you refer to pure conversational AI, which is back and forth multi-turn interactions, going back to what I told you about Google and Amazon Alexa, I just don't think people care about it as much. Like in fundamentally consumers, I don't think they find enough utility from the design or the interface. Whether it's a personal assistant use case, whether it is a business messaging use case, whether it is anything else, and we've attempted all types of things. We did, besides the B2B customer service stuff we're doing today, we've done what? We once tried to build like a spiritual guide on conversational AI, where you can basically come and say, hey, I'm feeling very low today, what should I do? We once built a productivity assistant who will remind you of all your key tasks in a day. So we've done a lot of stuff. I think voice AI in the contact center has a lot of applications. So, ultimately a lot of your phone calls you make to customer care, I think a lot of that stuff can be very useful. But the consumer large use case of, look, people are going to use this all across the board, I think has been underwhelming. I think the chat GPT piece is interesting mainly due to search. Like if you can replace search, and your search results can, instead of looking like blue links, can start looking like long answers, and that can be super powerful. Coming to AI, I think that is a different ball game. I think a large space that people should look at is verticalized AI solutions within certain industries. So if I was to build an AI company again today, I would pick a certain vertical that is large at the same time niche. Let's say healthcare. You could take agri. You could take defense. Um, and think about the data set that exists over there across multiple touch points in an enterprise, and how you can use a data set to build intelligent models to ultimately build solutions that are a lot more automatic, intelligent, that can solve a lot of inefficiencies within those enterprises. So I think generative AI is only a technology. Chat GPT is only a technology. All these things are APIs that ultimately need to get used to build solutions. And if you do it verticalized, I think those could be some massive businesses.
Some great advice and ideas for our listeners, for sure. Um, but one question here, I think you spoke about one use case that I'm personally curious about. Customer engagement, and I'm sure you faced with this challenge as well as you went through your journey with Haptic. How do you ensure that it doesn't become spam, and how do you ensure the quality of engagements? Right, it's a thin line.
Yeah, I think um, we obviously measured all of that, and we continue to measure many of these things. Um, I'm not so worried about like the spam or the privacy piece. Also because, like I said, the consumer applications have become a lot lesser, right? So now, if a lot of the applications are going to be within B2B enterprise, I think the enterprises have a very high bar on some of these things. So they'll control some of the spam, content moderation, as well as just the nature of the AI as well. So, for example, you know, we have two models that we run on Haptic: supervised and unsupervised. Supervised model basically means that, look, any single time something does not work within your sort of AI assistant, uh, the model will alert somebody, and then a human will go in and correct it. Unsupervised is the model will correct itself. Most enterprises are a lot more skeptical of doing the latter because they feel a bit worried that, look, what if the bot says something that we don't want to? So as a result, I think in B2B and enterprise use cases, which is where most of this stuff is emerging, you'll find that sort of there'll be enough controls driven by just brands and enterprises because they have too much to lose.
As your journey at Haptic has evolved, you've also kind of started trying your own hand out in the venture space. So would love to hear a bit about your experiences as an investor and what are some of the things that you look for?
Yeah, I've been angel investing for 5 years. We six now. Obviously, started doing a lot more once I had some money after the Reliance investment. Total portfolio of about 80 companies across various sectors and spaces. Honestly, got into it much like every founder does, which is some friend called and said, "Hey, listen, I need some help. Can you help me? And I also need 5 lakh rupees." So it sort of started out kind of in that way. Um, I realized that I like it a lot from the following aspects. One, just I felt like after you built a business, also built a business in so many different formats and so much struggle up and down, there is enough you can kind of give back as just help and advice to other founders. And I also started seeing that founders were resonating and liking that. So that exchange and dialogue of just helping a founder solve problems was quite a bit of fun. And then I realized that, look, this may not be a bit better. This may not be a bad asset class from an investment perspective, because to my earlier point, if businesses were taking off in India, there was a lot of growth stage capital available, and the VCs were pushing for it, right? So as angels, you had enough ways to get a good return on your capital as well. So that's how I got into it. Been incredible fun. Now we recently set up Peer Check, which is a syndicate that I run now, where we tend to invest closer to 200 to 300K in check sizes. And yeah, having a lot of fun doing it. What do I look for in companies? Again, has become through trial and error. I think I figured it out. I think I realized as angels, you're going to be successful if you look for companies that have the potential of outsized outcomes. So what I mean by that is that I am okay if the company fails, but I'm not okay if the company's maximum outcome is a $500 million outcome. Because if I bet at a portfolio level and I pick many of those, then it's not going to make sense long term from a IRR perspective. But if I bet across a portfolio level and math says that 2 out of 100 become maybe a $5-10 billion outcome over 5, 7, 10 years, then that makes all of it worth it, at least from an investment perspective. So one, it has to be like the potential has to be an outsized outcome. The second, of course, at the angel side, for me, it's all about the founder and the team. My personal journey, as you can tell from where I went to what I did and ended up where, right? So it's very much the same case with most founders. As long as your heart is in it, you're perseverant, and you have enough reason not to fail, you're going to figure something out. So I think that second is extremely important, which is the founder. And then the third is, to some degree, timing, which is that maybe the market is large, maybe the founder is great, but maybe this idea is not for today. It was for either 5 years back or it is for 10 years from today. So at least broadly, it has to fit in the bucket of, why today.
I think interesting framework. As a seed investor, probably look for similar things. Founder market obviously cannot be a large outcome, um, but perhaps we don't have the liberty to do as many investments, so we go through some more parameters, at least to satisfy ourselves that we've done the diligence. I think eventually you can never really tell which company is going to be successful. So I think all of us at every stage are doing some sort of portfolio construction. People pejoratively call it spray and pray. I think that's the way you make money in venture, honestly. Like you can never know which company is going to be successful. And probabilistically, it's going to be like the India unicorn hit rate is 2.5% from a seed level. So your ballpark right, 2 in 100 will make money. What's next for you and what's next for Haptic? Um, Personally, professionally, how are you thinking?
Haptics in a good place. We're scaling well. We're growing well. I think there are some key milestones to achieve over the next few months and years that I want to definitely see through. Um, Beyond that, I think Haptic itself presents a very exciting company to build for as long as it takes. But who knows? I think I'll see. I'll see at that point. I think it's no secret that Haptic's not going to be my first or last, for that matter. I think that there is enough exciting things to go build globally. That too. So we'll see kind of when that time comes. But right now, that like I said, there are some key milestones and goals to achieve at Haptic. And honestly, the next few months and maybe 18 months or so is going to be really um, key inflection point for that company to then see where that goes. We'll continue to do the venture investing angel stuff. That's a lot of fun. Yeah, and then gonna see where we go from there.
Awesome. And just to close out, what's one piece of unfiltered feedback you've received in your journey as an entrepreneur, majorly because I think that's most of what you've done that changed your perspective or made you think differently.
You are not a good
One piece
leader.
of advice.
You are not a good leader. Actually, two. You are not a
Okay.
good leader, and how are we going to make money?
Okay. Okay.
The, the, the first one was, yeah. The first one is actually in these many words by an employee.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
an employee of Haptic who, while leaving, he basically said that I'm leaving because, and it was a very calm conversation where he was just like, yeah, it didn't work out. It's like, okay, and so then I said, chal, tu ja raha hai types. So, any feedback for me? I asked this question, any feedback, and I didn't expect this
Okay.
to come, right? I'm like, "Chalo, हाँ."
Unfiltered feedback.
Yeah, this was really unfiltered. I said कि मैं feedback बोलेगा कि अच्छा time पे आया करो कुछ करो. I thought कि something like that कि don't scream so much, just that. So I asked any feedback from me, and he's like, you're not a good leader. I think you
Oh
are.
my God.
I think you are a manager. You are not somebody who knows how to lead. Um, so. It was also a period of time, to be fair to him, that I was going through a low period. Hapte was going through a low period, so maybe I was a little bit more eccentric. But that definitely, to answer your question, made me think, go back, reflect, that what could I do better. And I think, to be honest and fair to this person, since then it's been like generally my 360s on. Obviously, 360 feedback from your team, the CEO is always going to get the worst, right? But in general, they have been better over the years because I've
Right.
consciously thought about how to get things done. Yeah, and then the second one was, Series B, post investment. After the round was done, we're sitting on our first board meeting, presenting the full plan about MAU, DAU, GMV, transactions, retention, and then after all that is done, the guy, our investor, the guy says, "So how are we ever going to make money?" I said, "Yeah, I've not really thought
ये
about
तो
that.
नहीं सोचा था.
तो कभी हो तो अभी तक हम 2016 17 में हैं, हमको तो किसी ने बताया नहीं कैसे सोचते हैं इसके बारे में."
Yeah. Oh man, funny. But I think both good must have been important piece of advice for you and made you reflect. I think they would have contributed to your journey. So thank you for sharing. Thanks, Akrit, for doing this. I really enjoyed the conversation. I think we covered so many different aspects that many founders have not gone through. Like you started your company, did multiple pivots, um, were building an AI much before it was hot today. Sold to a large conglomerate, and now you're venture investing. So many fascinating aspects of your journey. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.